We've got some breaking news for you from Capitol Hill. Just moments ago, here in Washington, D.C., the House Rules Committee, chaired by Representative Jim McGovern of Worcester, Massachusetts, cleared the way for four pro-Armenian amendments to be considered by the full U.S. House of Representatives. This is a very constructive step by the Rules Committee. We're very encouraged by the progress of each of these measures. I'd like to walk through them for you so that you'll know what the House will be considering in the next several days. It could be in the next 48 hours. So basically, four pro-Armenian amendments were cleared by the U.S. House Rules Committee for consideration by the full House of Representatives. I'll walk through them one at a time. Number 837 is the first amendment. It requires Congress to report on Azerbaijan's activities against Nagorno-Karabakh in 2020. That was put forward by Congressman Cardenas. He was joined by Congressman Sherman, Congressman Schiff. The report would include information reporting investigations regarding the use of foreign mercenaries recruited by Turkey for Azerbaijan, the use of prohibited munitions such as white phosphorus and cluster munitions, the discovery of U.S. parts in Turkish drones that were deployed, the Bayraktar drones that were deployed against Artsakh. So this report, 837, would be required that the administration provide the Congress with reports on Azerbaijani war crimes, violations, other abuses, violations of international law. So we're very encouraged by that. We need more scrutiny of that. Azerbaijan, by and large, has gotten a free pass on its war crimes, its violations of humanitarian norms, the rules of war. Really, they got a free pass. This is meant to hold them to account by demanding that the administration report to Congress what they know, what did they know, when did they know it. So that's number one. Second amendment is related. It's Congresswoman Spears' amendment. It's number 992. She was joined by many of the leaders, again, of the Armenian caucus, including Congressman Pallone, Congressman Schiff, and others. And this would require a very, very detailed report on how Section 907's waiver, the decision by multiple presidents, going back to George W. Bush, Obama, Trump, and now Biden, how their waiver of Section 907 has impacted the situation in Nagorno-Karabakh, how it frankly contributed to Azerbaijan's aggression, how it materially strengthened the Azerbaijani military and morally emboldened the Aliyev regime to attack Artsakh in September of 2020. So those are two amendments that deal with reporting and getting some sunshine on Azerbaijan's violations of international law, and more to the point, create the groundwork, the predicate, the foundation upon which we can end this military aid program to Azerbaijan. It has gone on for way too long. It was never justified in the first place, all the more so after the war. We're very troubled that President Biden waived it when he spoke as a candidate about not waiving it. So these two measures are important steps in the direction of ending this military aid program. A third amendment deals with an issue that's close to each of our hearts, and that is the release of Armenian prisoners of war. Amendment number 698 put forward by Congressman Schiff. It's drawn from legislation that he has introduced, HRS 240, and this measure calls on Azerbaijan to release all prisoners of war. It doesn't play the game that the State Department plays of calling on all parties to release prisoners, because it's only Azerbaijan that holds prisoners. So this amendment puts the jacket on Azerbaijan because they are the party violating international law. They are the party in contravention of the Third Geneva Convention, and they are the party that needs to be called out for their illegal detention of Armenian prisoners of war. They may call them detainees, they may prosecute them under Azerbaijani law, but they are prisoners of war and they need to be released. Armenia released any prisoners it held immediately at the cessation of hostilities. Azerbaijan, now close to 2 years after the war they initiated, still holds over 140 Armenian prisoners, in many cases tortures and abuses them. So we're strongly supportive of amendment number 698. They may ultimately renumber the amendments, but for now it's 698. We want to see the Schiff Amendment on prisoners of war adopted. So those are the first three. Two, demanding scrutiny, oversight, accountability of the U.S. military aid program to Azerbaijan, holding Azerbaijan to account, and frankly, holding the Biden administration into account for perpetuating this reckless, irresponsible military aid program to the Aliyev regime. They're a wealthy government. They neither need nor deserve U.S. military assistance. All we do is strengthen their military capabilities, morally embolden them to continue what they're doing. It's business as usual, as long as we're sending $1 of American military assistance to Azerbaijan. The Fourth Amendment is another measure which we strongly support in concert with many of our coalition partners. That is to block, or at the very least, very stringently restrict the sale of U.S. F-16s to Turkey. Right now, Turkey was pushed out of the F-35 program for a variety of reasons that are still in place today. Turkey, instead of revising its conduct, modifying its behavior, simply came back with a lesser request of sorts. Instead of F-35s, they're pushing for F-16s. We oppose that sale, and we're encouraged to see that Congressman Pappas, along with many others, on a bipartisan basis, are pushing an amendment that would restrict that sale by preventing, for example, Turkey from using these weapons, these advanced weapon systems, against another NATO ally, such as Greece. We know also that Turkey is not going to use these arms to defend NATO. They're going to use them to attack the Greeks, to attack the Cypriots, to attack, frankly, the Armenians or the Kurds or Arabs and others in Syria. They have sort of a 360-degree aggressive projection of power, and they'll use every tool at their disposal to execute their very aggressive plans against their neighbors and even domestic targets, such as the Kurds. And we don't need to be arming that. We should be stopping Turkish aggression, not arming Turkish aggression. So these are the four amendments. We're very encouraged that these went through. There were a total of about 6 or 7 measures that were initially introduced. 2 that were perhaps the most stringent, the toughest on the U.S. military program, were not ruled in order. We regret that, and we'd like to see those measures move forward in through other vehicles, perhaps the foreign aid bill, perhaps in standalone measures. But nonetheless, the very straightforward zeroing out of U.S. military aid to Azerbaijan, those measures will not be considered by the full House, but these other 4 will, and each of them is very potent, very serious efforts to constrain Turkey, to constrain Azerbaijan, to hold these hostile regimes accountable for their very aggressive, racist, toxic, and often fatal aggression against the Armenian people, both in Armenia and Artsakh. So I want to share with you this news. We're very encouraged by the action of the Rules Committee this evening. Just to wrap up, for those of you who are joining late, the U.S. House Rules Committee just moments ago, U.S. House Rules Committee ruled in order 4 pro-Armenian amendments, 4 ANCA-Backed measures that hold Turkey and Azerbaijan accountable for the use of prohibited munitions like white phosphorus and cluster bombs, for the recruitment of international mercenaries, jihadists from Syria and elsewhere, for illegally detaining and abusing Armenian prisoners of war, for the discovery of U.S. parts in the Turkish drones that Azerbaijan deployed against Artsakh. On all of those scores, we need to hold Turkey and Azerbaijan accountable. We also need to get our prisoners back. Every last Armenian held in Azerbaijan needs to be returned today. The United States government needs to stop equivocating, stop playing word games, stop calling these prisoners of war detainees, providing Azerbaijan the cover that they are not protected under the international treaties that the United States, that Armenia, that Azerbaijan are parties to. And finally, we need to keep advanced weapons out of the hands of Turkey, out of the hands of Recep Erdogan. If we provide him with F-16s, mark my words, he will use them in the most violent and aggressive and fatal ways against the Armenian people, the Kurds, the Greeks, Arabs, and everyone else within reach of the Azerbaijani military. So an encouraging step. We're very grateful to everybody. And we're talking now tens of thousands of people, tens of thousands of Armenian Americans who called and wrote and tweeted their legislators, saying, let's get these measures to the House floor. Well, they are going to go to the House floor. The work on that score is just starting. So very first thing tomorrow morning, we're going to roll out new initiatives to get you, to provide you with opportunities to make sure that your member of Congress votes in favor of these measures when they reach the House floor. So getting them before the body, before all 435 members of the House, that was a first step, but certainly not the last step. Now our job is to see them voted on and adopted by the House. Similar measures matching these in the Senate, ultimately reconciled, the 2 versions of the bill reconciled, sent to the president's desk and signed into law to hold Turkey and Azerbaijan accountable. This is what we owe, frankly, to our past, to our homeland, to our future generations. the next generation, even generations yet on board. And this is our responsibility. So with that, I want to thank you for everything you did to make tonight possible. And please join with us as we take the next steps in this very, very vital journey. Thank you.